Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It depends on when you're listening. And welcome to The Solution. Nothing changes if we change nothing. Chevar, hello.
What's going on, Ronnie?
Well, I guess we should tell them who we are as far as our program. And why don't you tell them?
So we are the PRC, stands for Prevention Resource Center of New York City. We're one of six in the state. We're funded by Oasis. I always forget what the acronym is. And Ronnie, you're gonna help me. Office of
Addiction
Shit.
Services and Supports.
Uh,
And it's NYS, New York State OASS. And we're also housed at Children's Aid.
the wonderful Children's Aid. Although they used to be Children's Aid Society, and people still know them as Children's Aid Society. And I remember growing up hearing the song. I'm really glad they made the Children's Aid Society. And I remember that song.
Yep.
To this day, and funny. I used to work in a museum, and we used to invite camp programs to our. We used to do like workshops with others around environmental studies or media and so forth. And they would come and I would see these shirts and I'm like, and I would, as a goofball, as a teen in my early 20s, like sing this song. Like, yeah, you guys know this song. And then I end up working there. I'm like, don't sing this song anymore.
I know it's true when you because I heard the song for years too. I mean, it was even though I'm so much older than you, you were growing up, I was grown, but it was everywhere. There's because it's a famous organization. We work for like
Absolutely.
the leader, the icon. When I got the job here 8 years ago, I was so excited because of Children's Aid, the Children Aid Society's reputation as a pioneer, and they continue to be.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I love it here. Don't get me wrong. I've done quite a bit here. But yeah, I, I, I definitely love the song, and I missed this song. I know I'm going to get off topic. I'll get off of this really quickly. At one point, it was our whole music. At one point, so I was like, "Oh, there's the song." So that for me, it was a bit nostalgic. So whenever I hear it, so maybe we could pitch to the. I'm pretty sure they already thought about it. Hey, bringing the song back as a retro thing, or is what's old is new. That's always the thing, you know.
Well, it might be fun on one of our podcasts to just start the podcast playing it.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
I think we may have to get permission first, but I don't know because it's been out there. But we're part of Children's Aid, but if we're allowed to play it, maybe we'll start one of our podcasts with that as the lead in music.
That would be super cool. That I'm pretty sure all the listeners will start singing along and forget that it's a podcast and think it's a radio show. Well, Roddy, you're wearing my favorite color. My favorite color is purple.
I know.
It's the color of royalty. I am a Leo. I'm a summer baby, and I know you're
Hmm.
not the biggest fan of the summer, but that's
I'm a
what
summer baby though too.
I know you are. But I know you love the winter. I know you love the winter. That's where the light, the sun gave us life. The heat gave us life. But you're wearing my favorite color and it looks great on you. I love
Well, thank
purple.
you.
Purple is the greatest color in
Goes
my
with the
mind.
silver hair, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I know it's funny when I was getting these glasses. I guess almost 3 years ago, I need new glasses. They have like a purple tint to them, and I remember the woman there saying, "It goes so great with your hair." So I think I'll be looking for purple tinted glasses again.
Very cool. Keep the color going. Keep the color coming. It's a great color.
I, well, I tell you, this has been, we our society has been through so much these last couple of years. We're one of the things we are looking at even today. We'll be talking about the idea that nothing is really normal, or what is normal, and our newsletters looking at normal. And I've come to the conclusion there's no such thing as normal. Normal for me is just a changing reality on a daily basis. And normal puts so much pressure on people. I was thinking about that. I was like, what did normal mean to me growing up? And I realized the pressure it puts on young people to try to fit in, to try to be normal, when really in reality, normal is really just a changing scale that, I mean, think about it. You go for a blood test one time, the normal range may be different than the next time, depending upon the average. So if normal is average, I want to be more than that. I,
Absolutely. I'm
you
sorry,
know,
Aaron. Okay, go
I
for
want to
it.
be extraordinary. So
Absolutely.
I'm not going to use the word normal anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying like to refrain from using that word because I know we were meeting the other day and I used the word. And I was like, I don't like it because to your point, like, what is normal? And we talk about these stories of, growing up in different neighborhoods and being a part of different groups and what some people may consider normal. I'm like, dude, being pulled over by a cop should not be normal. Like that should not be a normal thing
That's
for a
right.
16-year-old, a black 16-year-old from any. And it's like you can live in Harlem, you can live in Compton. We all have the same story. That shouldn't be normal.
That's right. It
That's
shouldn't be normal. And we have accepted things as normal that are totally abnormal and totally dysfunctional. And so that's my new thing is I am not going to even look at the idea of normal anymore. This new
absolutely.
normal crap, come on.
Yeah, I don't believe in it. I don't think it's a thing. I don't think that people want to go back to the old norm. Like, dude, what was great about the old norm? Like we still had debt. We still had a lack of resources in particular neighborhoods. Certain groups didn't get the services that they should. Everyone should get the same thing,
Mhm.
regardless of social economical background. Like we live in the greatest country in the world, don't we? Like why can't we all have free education and free healthcare or equitable healthcare in education at least? It's
Mhm.
like, dude, like it's like one of the things I do miss about the work I did prior is giving, like I was a program director prior to this job, giving the youth opportunities that they normally wouldn't get during the school day, like during the after school
Mhm.
program, giving them music classes, theater classes, art classes. A lot of those things aren't in the school, and that in some schools they are, but some of the schools I worked in, those things weren't offered. To give that to them, I think it helped. It gave them a different world and an outlook on what could be a normal. Because in the normal is there we go to lunch, we wear a uniform, we go home. There's no and do schoolwork. That's a really boring normal. Like,
Mhm.
I grew up having music class. I grew up having art class. I grew up having all these things. I remember when I was still in school when it stopped happening, and I was like, this is dumb. Because like for me, I needed those things. I
Yeah.
needed the arts. I personally, I can't speak for anyone else. Chevar Francis, needed the arts.
Well, I, Ronnie Katz, needed the arts and still need the arts.
Absolutely.
you know, oh, but it's just the idea of normal. I just feel like it's this label that it puts people in a little box and
Right.
it doesn't, and when people feel they're not meeting that idea of normal, it really creates a lot of stress and anxiety
Right.
and it pushes people in directions they don't need to be in.
Right.
But all you hear lately, the new normal, the new normal. I hate to tell you, but this is reality.
Right.
Let's make this moment, this reality, this second be better than that.
Absolutely. I'd rather be abstract than normal.
There you go.
I'd rather be abstract than normal.
You're extraordinary.
Exactly. And I tell that to my kids. It's okay to be different. Be who you want to be. Don't be
That's
who
right.
what your parents want you to be or what society wants you to be. Be what you want to be. And I'll help you get there, whatever it is that you want to be. And long as it doesn't harm you or anyone else, just do it. Let's have fun doing it. My kids like, oh, you always want to have fun. I'm like, I thought it's supposed to be the other way around. I thought the parents are
Mhm.
supposed to be the strict ones and the kids are supposed to be the let's go have fun. But I'm like, I'm the other way. I mean, I am a parent. I am strict at times, and my kids have to remind me to be a parent sometimes because I want to. I mean, I don't befriend them, but they are my children. But I make sure that they're able to make decisions without feeling that there's gonna be penalties, you know,
Mhm.
on them. And it's a teachable moment. Like I really believe that, and
Absolutely.
it's an abstract idea. It's a normal for me, with an abstract idea for others.
Well, I've been researching norm quotes on normalcy, and
Mhm.
the one that really spoke to me is by somebody named Charles Adams.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's normal is an illusion. What is normal for the spider is chaos for the fly.
Wow.
I
Wow.
know, right?
I'm like visualizing like wow, like this. Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's the best way to put it. Because what's normal to you isn't normal to anybody else. It's
That's
like
right.
we might look like, what are you doing over there? But that's who you are. That is your way of life. That's your abstractness. Is that a word? I just made that up. That
But
is
the
your
other thing with normal
yeah.
too, often people may appear somewhat as they say, normal on the outside, but
Right,
nobody knows
right.
what's going on inside.
Yeah,
So I really think it's a dangerous label, and I want to eradicate it. So this is my new quest. I've been thinking about it a lot because,
right,
we've been talking about it.
right,
Our newsletter is going to be
right.
devoted to it. I write a column, and I started thinking, well, what was normal? And I use that, like, I say it like that because it's
Right.
not my word. When I was growing up, if you look at what was considered normal then, people would be arrested now.
Absolutely.
But so it's like normal is never the same. So how can we use that term? I really believe it confines people, it limits people, it depresses them, it suppresses, it oppresses.
No, you mentioned something that I always talk about, what we see on the outside may seem normal, but what's below the surface. And that's similar to the iceberg analogy that we use in one of our trainings. Um, and I always talk about the quote unquote strong people, those people who have to uphold and be so powerful that people forget that they're human, that they have
Mm-hmm.
their own things going on with inside them. They don't want to let you know because once they let you know, they become vulnerable, or people might look down like, "Oh, you weren't as strong as I thought you were." I think the strength is sometimes telling people like, "Dude, I need a break.
Absolutely.
I need your support. I can still lead, but I need your support." And and one thing I've learned from growing up and getting older and becoming wiser and talking to people. To those strong people need someone to check in on them. Because I have friends or
Yes.
and
Yes.
relatives who are so strong, and I'm like, "Yo, how are you? Yo, let's talk." And they say thank you because like that right there resets them. Like, wow, you just helped me become even stronger
Mm-hmm.
than what people already thought. Like you reinvigorated me. Like, wow, that conversation of asking me how I was doing, taking me out for coffee or brunch, whatever, just sitting down having a regular person conversation, not about work, not about being powerful, not about moving mountains, just about birds and clouds and stuff, just regular stuff. And that sometimes,
Mm.
re-energizes people, those strong people. Check on those people you think are strong, that it may seem normal, that are they may seem powerful and pushing forward no matter what, whether it's your mom, dad, uncle, aunt, cousin, whomever, child. Check in on them, please. It may seem normal for them to keep pushing forward, but inside, like Riley said, there's a layer inside that they're covering up, that they don't want to they don't want to, trust me, they don't want to let you down. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
trust me, they don't want to let you down.
Being one of those people, I'm so glad you said that, because people sometimes forget, even though I'm screaming it from the mountaintop sometimes, some of my dearest friends, when I'm going through something, and then I'm going, because of course, when you were talking, someone came to the door. They've forgotten to check in on me,
Right,
and I have to call them and say, "Hey, I'm not doing that well," because they're
right.
not used to it. But
Yeah.
anyway, we have somebody knocking on our door, so
That's
why don't we let them in?
that was a great conversation. I almost didn't want to let her in, so we could continue the conversation.
I know. And here's our guest today. Yay! Hey, Diane, how are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How y'all doing?
We're
Good.
good. We're good. We were just having an interesting conversation, which we'll tell you about in a minute. But first, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers, our listeners, and tell them who you are and what you do, and anything else you want to tell
Well, that leaves it wide open now, doesn't it?
them?
Good morning or afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this. My name's Diane Fedorchak. I'm the interim director at the Center for Health Promotion at UMass Amherst. So I like to sum it up and say that we do drugs, sex, and alcohol mindfully. So we're the office of that.
I love that. It's funny because we were just talking about the idea that normal really puts people in a box and confines them, and that, like, there's no such thing as normal. In fact, I
Absolutely.
shared a quote with ChevarF from Charles Adams that, wait, I'm going to have to pull it up so I do it justice. Normal is an illusion. What is normal for the spider is chaos for the fly.
Hmm.
And we were just talking about that when you came in.
I'm so glad, that is so funny. What a great quote. And that just actually came up last night in I'm teaching a a residence education class. Like they have to take a class before they could be an RA or a peer mentor.
Right.
And a student just, we were talking about the cycle of socialization and diversity and different identities and multiple identities. And so all of that Bobby Harrow's work, we were talking about. So, and a student just said, he said, something and growing up in a normal family. And he said, you know, a mom and a dad. And I was like, yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. What is normal? You know, so we just spent a little time unpacking what normal is and how we even come to that concept, right? I like how that even invades our thoughts of what normal even is.
Exactly. You know, and that, you know, brings us to a lot of what we've been, this month has been like looking at the idea of normal. I mean, with the workshop you're going to be doing, our newsletter is dedicated to that there's no such thing as normal. I'm writing a column on it. So, you know, it just really caused us to look at it a lot. But you mentioned, you know, what you do, your program. So what's it been like for you these last 2 years?
How long is this podcast? I'm just kidding.
We got about 30 minutes.
I'm just kidding. You know, it's been so many things all at the same time. You know, people, the last 2 years, particularly the beginning of the pandemic, people would be like, hey, Di, how are you? I'm like, I'm fantastic and terrible in the same moment. And I'm like, and in other moments, I'm like, I don't know. Am I supposed to be something? So I think like trying to be in that space has been really challenging over the last couple of years. And in work mode, you try to like work and then not know what to do with my then like 5-year-old who and at home and then crawling on me and trying to help and wants to be part of my presentations and has some things to say when I'm in meetings. And you know, it was such a challenge in so many ways to balance everything and try to work in 15-minute intervals. In the beginning of the pandemic, I saw a great Dolly Parton meme where it said working 9 to 9:15 and 10 to 10:30 and 11 to 11:02, and it went on and it cracked me up. And that was a lot of what I was doing, and then staying up late and trying to work because you're just in these spaces and then trying to support staff, you know, as we're like adapting so that we can really figure out how to best support students. I mean, you know, so it was a lot of things. And the ability to be creative and innovative and the opportunity that the pandemic gave us was, I think, really career changing and profession changing, because finally people in our university was saying the word well-being. And we're saying like students' health and well-being is important. I'm like, well, yes, it is, you know, I mean, we're putting a different focus and attention on it. And we had an opportunity to step in a different way and had an opportunity to learn more about different technology that was out there and how do we use that creatively to reach students that it was really hard to reach. So I think it offered us great opportunity while everyone was like in this uncertain response. So while you're also supporting your family, while you're supporting your staff, while you're supporting students. So it was a lot. And wow, some really awesome creative pieces have come out of it that has changed how we work with students, which is great. And then how we also work and support each other and how we kind of give each other the little benefit of the doubt, you know, and some space for all that we're all holding. So compassion. Yeah, leading with compassion. That's how it's been.
I definitely can attest to the child jumping into my meetings. And Ronnie will tell you last year during the pandemic when my son was home, like he, whenever I would get out of the chair, he would find his way into the chair instead of going to class because his class is on Zoom too. He would throw his camera off and jump into our meetings and definitely partake in and share his ideas and thoughts. So
it was amazing.
So I miss it. Don't get me. I miss him, man. I miss him so much. I mean, I see him, but I missed having him home and having him you know, asking me questions about work, and that became our normal. Him asking questions about what my life is at work, and him seeing and hearing a conversation, and me hearing what school is about, because it's a whole different aspect. Like, wait, oh, so that's what you guys talk about during the day in school. So I definitely miss that, you know. And Ronnie and I, we talked about eradicating the word, well, more Ronnie than I, eradicating the word normal. And Riley said, be extraordinary. I said, be abstract. You know, there's nothing wrong with being who you are, you know, changing that idea of normal, because like that quote states, like the spider's just making webs. It's like, it's a regular thing. This is making webs. Like, hey, it's not my fault you got trapped.
Right.
And the fly's like, where's this wasn't here 30 minutes ago.
Yeah,
that's right.
Chevar, I like it. It really I do miss that as well. And then the way people hold the kids coming up, or the, you know, the dog or the cat or the doorbell ringing and stuff, you know. And I really learned too, people have different tolerance levels with that, you know. For me, it was like an energizer, like, oh my gosh, I'm in your living room, let me see your kid. I wouldn't have known, I would never have seen your kid before, right? Like, I really felt like I moved closer to some of my colleagues. And I also, and that was another thing the pandemic gave me, was different relationships with different colleagues, because we were doing a little bit different work because of the focus shifted a little bit. And I got to really become more friends with some colleagues because we were doing different work together. But I really learned some people, I like the tolerance levels of what people can hold is different. And then you also, that compassion around like, oh my gosh, you're facilitating this meeting or leading this training while you're holding space for your son doing school. I mean, that is a lot. And that's like, those are like some superpowers that people don't always get to see, you know. Yeah.
I love the way you put that, because it's true. It's just, we learn so much about each other and ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and look how creative we've all been. I mean, when we first started, remember 2 years ago, when we started putting together the first training that you were going to do for us virtually, we were just like out there. We were flying by the seat of our pants.
Totally.
But now I feel like we got this. You know?
Totally. I had like boxes propped up for the computer in a little tiny space, and I couldn't walk around and didn't know. Yeah, just all the things that but we figure it out, right? Like, you just do. We're just doers.
Yeah.
So you just figure stuff out, make it happen.
It makes us extraordinary. The new extraordinary. That's my new
The
thing.
new extraordinary. Can you talk about, because you kind of briefly mentioned it, like I love the fact you talked about getting to know people better.
Yeah.
You know, like I love, like, you're absolutely right. Like, you know, otherwise you wouldn't see my son in every meeting, and like all the coalitions got to know my son for a while. And at one point, when my daughter was home from college, she was either, because like, she couldn't go back to school, so she even helped out a couple times, and she was the young adult or the youth for some of our questions. So my question to you is like the maturation of this, like this hybrid world. How did you? Is there still a transition piece of you doing the work for whether it's teaching or trainings, or is it are you still in the transition phase, or is it do your new abstract? Is it like what is? Can you talk about that?
Yes, I don't actually know if it's still in transition or the new abstract. I don't know where we are on this train. Right? Like, we're on this journey, but I have no idea on this pandemic journey where we actually are. So I think it's both, because we are still doing things virtually. And I still have meetings that are virtually when the other people are sitting in the office next door or across campus, and still doing trainings virtually. And I'm also in person, and I'm teaching a class in person, and I'm down in the campus center, you know, watching students pet dogs and that stuff. So like, it's a yes and I think it's like we're all figuring out how we do work now. I mean, there have been more meetings that I was able to get to because it was a virtual option. Like, there were days, because of my life situation and stuff going on at home, where I would have had to take a day off because because of what I had to do at home, it would have needed to be a day off, and I would have needed to miss that meeting. Like there was no possible way for me to get there. But because it was Zoom, I was able to attend to the meeting, take care of what I needed to at home, and only take a few hours off. And so, so it's kind of like, how do we find those sweet spots and take, like, not throw it all out, like, okay, we're in person now, you know? And then there's also, like, we miss things. Like, I miss being in the room with my colleagues with our pens and our sticky notes and rolling up our sleeves and like getting down to the planning and the whatever that we need to do, because it feels a little harder over Zoom. And yet there's still stuff that we can do. I mean, we were able to have guest speakers come, like we're in person and they're over Zoom, or we're all on Zoom. That would have been harder for them to fly across the country, you know, and so it just opens up so many more opportunities. And I think accessibility wise too. Just again, yeah. So I think we're just finding our space, like, what is it? What are the positives? What are the cost benefits, you know? And when do we do things in person and hybrid on Zoom? I think we're just all figuring it out, making mistakes and trying again.
Yeah, I totally can relate to so much of what you said, because a lot of times I was able to do, like, I had one of my dogs unfortunately got really sick and died, and you know, in late December, but I was able to be here to take those breaks and to be able to take care of her and help. And if I'd been, you know, an hour and a half away, it would have changed the whole dynamic. And I have a lot of gratitude that I was here to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly. It doesn't matter. I got to be part of it, you know. But there's also the part that we've seen a lot of different trends happen, you know, with substance misuse and prevention and youth and young adults. And I'm just curious, like, what have you seen over this time as far as use and the way people are seeking help and things like that? Just, you know, everything that's within that context.
Yeah. It's the students, they're struggling, you know, a lot of them are just struggling. And what I saw during the pandemic too was that I had the opportunity to work with some students in a different way that I don't usually work with. I got to work with some student leaders in a different way, doing a different project, doing a different program with them. And I saw students who don't usually struggle in a particular way struggling, right? So so that was newer for them, because they're like, wait, I don't usually struggle with this. Like, what's happening? So that's been, so the students are they've been having a hard time, and how do you connect, and they're isolated. And then, you know, we're as older staff trying to reach out and like, here's some things you can connect on Zoom, and they're like, we don't want to, you know, but yet they're starving. They were starving. So I'm not using that word lightly, right? Like, we don't, in our house, we don't say we're starving, because we're actually not starving. We could be really hungry or hangry, but we're actually not starving. So I'm checking myself on use of the word starving. And I think for some of our students, they actually were starving for that connection, and just, there were barriers for them to go get it, you know, and challenges. And even the students who are really active in some of our programs historically, it was a challenge for them to just show up because of all that was going on and all that they were holding in their family lives, you know, in their personal lives with their friendships and stuff, and school. So getting them involved is really, and keeping them in our programs and involved in our programs has been a challenging. Getting them to come to the events, you know, they're like, we want to connect. We're like, well, here's an event, come. And they're like, nah, you know. So we're like, what do we do? And as far as the substance use goes, it's kind of interesting. I know what the numbers say nationally, and I know with the, you know, the opioid use on the rise, and just losing too many people. We have been for generations losing people. So thanks to, you know, racism and classism and sexism and all of the isms, right? Like, it's so, you can't see that I just did that on the podcast. So interconnected. And
they can see it. We have a video version also.
Oh, fantastic. Right. That's the other thing, right? You look at yourself on Zoom, it's very distracting. Anyway, and at here at UMass, it's interesting. Like, we're not, the numbers of students like being reported for violations to come to our basics program, the intervention that we give when students violate policies, is way down right now, like way down. And yet there are students that are drinking, and I think it really continues to be the minority of students doing a majority of the drinking. But what I'm seeing is there is a percentage of students that their substance use has shifted and they're using it for coping, for depression, anxiety. You know, the number of students telling us that they're using marijuana for depression, anxiety, and how we have to have, you know, we're having that conversation around it helps for until it doesn't anymore, you know, and so shifts in that, but also seeing some decrease in use. It's a little confusing. So we're just kind of taking all the data and working with it to see what the trends are. And it is really, there are some students who just aren't using because of the pandemic, and they were home and they didn't have access, and they're just not. And then they come to school, and of course, you know, for those students, we do see some increase, but our numbers aren't bearing that out. You know, our numbers to our referral are down, and we do have students in recovery that we're working with, and always the phone's ringing with, you know, this, not like it's ringing off the hook, but you know, every there's a few students every semester that are calling. I mean, like, yeah, how do I get hooked up with other students in recovery? You know, I need some help. So, but I haven't seen a huge spike in that. I don't know how coherent that piece was, but they're struggling, and it's playing out a little bit differently because of the pandemic. And the weather is about to get warmer, and that's always telling. I know most schools, depending on, especially on the East Coast here, when the weather gets warmer, then the outdoor and the day drinks start to happen, and then the drinking shifts again. You know, the beginning of this fall semester, we see spikes in students drinking, and then their behaviors aren't as, you know, they're standing out in a way that's not so positive. And then again, when the weather starts changing in the spring semester, we see that. So we're ready for that.
Out of you shared a lot, and I'm like, you know, taking it all in. Like, how has that affected you as a person, and how has it affected your work? Like dealing with, like everything you talked about, the youth dealing with the pandemic and their struggles during this time, and asking for help and won't take the help. You know, how does it, like, what does that mean for you? Like, does it mean you have to work harder, or does it like, how does it affect you as a person? Like, and then how does it change your workload? Or if I'm asking that correctly?
Yeah, no, I get, you know what you're saying. Thanks. I think you know, and we have been in a shift on how we do health promotion. And right before the pandemic, we have a new associate vice chancellor for well-being, so for campus life and well-being, and that's been fantastic because we have a senior leader who has her eye on health and well-being, who oversees Center for Health Promotion, the rec center, the counseling center, and residence education. So, and how then, because we have this upper support now, how do we take an integrated approach to health and well-being? And how do we move to being a health promoting university? And that right there is the shift in the work. And how do we go to where the students are, you know, if they're, you know, and they'll come to the programs, but, you know, smaller, but how do we be more creative and flexible and adaptive in our programming and in our reach to students? And how do we use peers better to reach their peers? How do we train more peers to be on the lookout for their peers to have, because they're going to go to each other first. So how do we give them some skills and increase their skills on having those conversations with each other, whether they're part of a formal peer program or not? Like, how do we use social media to give them some tips on how to talk with each other and what to look for in their friendships? And then where can they go for help, and where are all the entry points to help on campus? And that's been the thing too. Our counseling center has opened way more doors and created more doors of entry for getting help from the counseling center, because we know across counseling centers across the country, like, you can't see everybody, you know, you can't hire enough counselors. So how do you do the work differently? And how do you work more upstream and and provide more different doors? So creating more groups, more specific groups that students can walk into, more opportunities where students could just pop in to see a therapist, counselor, social worker for 15 minutes that aren't in the counseling center, but are spread out throughout campus where they are. So that's the work that we're really working on. Like, how do we go to them and use that? This is one of the reasons why I'm teaching the residence education curriculum. Like, I wanted to know, they're my colleagues who are in the same kind of cluster collaborative in student affairs. I want to be like, what are y'all teaching and how can we work together? How do we continue to be partners and more active partners and not just like, oh, we sit at meetings together. Yeah, let's do a program together. You know, how do we actually really be collaborative partners, and how do we get the health and well-being messages in there as a part of everything that we do? Just like, how do we get diversity and inclusion as part of everything we do? You know, it's not just one center's job to do that. It's all of our job. It's not just our center to do health. It's just like, how do we do that? How do we work with our deans and our academic advisors? So that's some of the kind of upstream work that we are doing, and that shifted somewhat because it perpetuated because of the pandemic. It made it an easier, I don't want to say battle or fight, because it wasn't really maybe that's the right word, I don't know, but anyway, but it made it easier kind of thing to move the needle, because people were invested, and you got professors and grad students being like, oh my gosh, these students are struggling, I don't know how to help, what do I do? I'm like, oh, we know what to do, oh, let's work together, you know, we can help you help them, and we can all do this together. Okay, so you go and you find your allies and go from there. So it has changed my work kind of in that way, which is where we were headed. So that's helpful.
Yeah, as you were talking about that, I was thinking these last couple of years for me, I've always been passionate about this work, but I've developed an even greater passion because of all of the creativity and all of the collaboration and the partnerships, and the fact that we're tearing those walls down. We're breaking down the barriers, and we're reaching out to each other, and we're realizing it doesn't take, this little tiny approach. It takes everything and everyone, and it's a cultural change. It's a societal change. That's always been one of the pitfalls of prevention for me, that they put so much emphasis on the drug and certain strategies, rather than saying, hey, we need to provide everything because certain people need everything and certain will not, but we've got to have it all there, because one approach is not going to work. We've been playing this game over the years where one substance use goes up while the other goes down, and they say, oh, they're not drinking as much. Wait, they're smoking weed so much, and the pendulum's constantly swinging. Oh, environmental strategies. No, we need program, so it's a matter of, let's do it all.
Yes.
Let's not just, relegate ourselves to one thing, because one thing doesn't work.
Right.
And we've proven that. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's so true, Ronnie. And if I can just say on that, it's how do we also get to the root of that, right? How do we get to the root of why students are drinking or using marijuana or other substances, right? Why are they acting out? Why are they doing whatever the thing they are? There's a reason for it, right? And what is the root, and how do we get at the root? Like, how do we combat sexism, right? Early and often, and because by working against sexism, we are like, taking down toxic masculinity and helping young men cry and have feelings and emotion, right? I mean, that
I cry all the time.
Substance use, and we have to help our colleagues across campus make these connections, right? That this is, how do you help substance abuse, and how do you do suicide prevention? Well, we fight against sexism, and we fight against racism, and we listen to each other, and we connect, and we have good communication skills. I mean, all these things, that we don't always think about, but that is doing suicide prevention. That is doing substance abuse prevention.
Yes.
So I'm right on with you.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on for hours about this one for sure, but we're actually almost to the end of our time together.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just two more questions. One of them, and you've explained some of it, and then Chevar's going to have our question we always ask. What motivates you to continue to do this work?
I think some of what you said there is the opportunity that I get to be creative. I get to continue to move the needle in what it means to be what health promotion is, seeing students thrive and succeed, seeing students struggle, and then thrive is a gift beyond any. And it just, yeah, and being part of this team, like I'm just one piece of a larger team working together. So having great colleagues and collaborators across campus and across the country that I get to work with on different levels. I mean, that continues to motivate me, and I get new ideas and I get inspired, and I get to hear new speakers come in and take a different approach on mental health hygiene. I just have these notes on my desk from a speaker that I just heard that I'm like, oh, and it's just a little bit of a shift in focus that energizes me again to just, where can I take it now? You know, there's always like, what's next? And it doesn't mean I'm not good enough and I'm not doing enough. It just means, what's next? What, you know, how do we support students? How do we keep supporting students so that they can thrive and succeed? So that keeps me going.
Thriving and succeeding. Like I mentioned earlier, it's okay to cry. I cry too. There's nothing wrong with it. Trust me. Trust me.
Yep.
I can still fight.
Crying is so good.
Our final question. This is a question we ask all our guests. So think back to when you were a youngin', when you were just little tight out there doing whatever that you were doing. What did you want to be when you were that young person, and why?
What did I want to be? Like what I want to be when you grew up? When you grew up. Yeah. I told people that I was going to college to play softball.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and then I was going to study health and phys ed. So I was so that was my main thrust in life was to play sports. And I don't know, it was I mean, I remember, you know, I don't know, I think I was always going to be a teacher. And I went to school to be a health and physical education teacher, but I honestly did say I was going to play softball, and then, oh right, yes, I had to pick a major. So I was a health and phys ed teacher for a bunch of years, and then went back to grad school to be a guidance counselor, and because just some things that happened in my career, and that was like the shift in focus, and then landed in higher ed doing health education stuff, and kind of never left. I loved it, you know. My boss at the time said, you know, there's a position here, a health educator. Do you want to stay? I'm like, look, I just went to grad school for 3 years to be a guidance counselor. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, talk to students about drugs, sex, and alcohol. And she said, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, talking to students about drugs, sex, and alcohol. Oh, all right. But I didn't know that growing up. Like little Diane wanted to play softball and, you know, do her thing. And had to learn that I was smart enough. You know, I had to learn that because I didn't ever feel smart enough or good enough. And I had to learn that through the process of growing up and doing some healing work. So here I am doing what I love. The piece I do miss is softball. I coached softball for a long time, and
me too.
Very, very high levels of softball. And because of this job in higher ed, it's the piece of my soul that's missing. And my kid does not want to play softball. She wants to dance.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, that's good.
Dance mom.
Your child is being abstract, okay?
Extraordinary.
She can do whatever she wants as long as she's happy, having fun, and engaged and connecting.
Being extraordinary.
Yes.
As a former softball player and softball coach, I have to ask, what position did you play?
What do you think, Ronnie?
Let me think. I was thinking catcher, possibly.
Yes, catcher all the way.
I was first base.
There you go. Yes, I have the knees in the back and the shoulder to prove it. You don't think
I just knew. I just knew.
One day, you know. Yes, I didn't realize I had control issues, and then I had to take a little moral inventory of myself, and then look like, oh right, I was a catcher. I told you what to do. All right, I was a coach. I told you when to steal and when not. Oh, I was a bartender. I was controlling when you got a drink and when you didn't, and what was on the TV. I was like, oh, I guess I was a little controlling.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Not only am I in long-term recovery for drugs and alcohol, but I'm also a recovering control freak. But we want to thank you so much for coming today.
Oh,
This
thanks for
was a
having me.
pleasure. We'll have you back for sure. But thank you, and I'm excited. We have a training coming up.
I'm
And
very excited about that.
it's always great to work with you. But we're going to finish out the show, so we're going to thank you for coming, and we'll have to say goodbye. Chevar, any parting words?
All right. Thank you so much.
It was
It's
great.
always a pleasure talking with
It
you.
was great. I loved hearing it. No, don't leave. I'm still talking to you, Diane. Don't cover your mouth. No, just hearing you talk and it just reminded me of, you opened up my mind to remind me of how I felt during the pandemic, having my son around and getting to know people's homes. Like, oh, you have a cat? Didn't know you were a cat. You have plants? Like those things. So thank you for that. Reminding me that, a lot of us, I have a birth virtual background because my son will walk back and he would do one of these weird things. But just seeing the people who are there is one of the greatest things of this pandemic, having like your own sitcom drama right on in Zoom of things happening. But thank you again.
I love that. Thank you. Your own sitcom drama. Yes. But thank you. It's always a pleasure talking with the both of you. I really appreciate it and appreciate our colleagueship and friendship growing over the years. So thanks for doing the work you do.
Same here. You too. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Take care.
That was cool.
Very cool. I just love talking with her. I love working with her. I mean, such great thoughts there. Something to think about.
No, absolutely. I want to continue this conversation of being extraordinary, being abstract, or the spider and the fly. I like that conversation. I can't wait till this podcast is up and our newsletter goes out. And if you are a listener, you want a copy of a newsletter, please send us a message via social media. We'll definitely send you a copy of our newsletter. But I think that was good. I love that conversation. We almost didn't let her in at the beginning of the show.
Well, we were going to let her in, but we were in the middle.
Yeah.
We were always going to let our special guests in because they're here because they're special guests.
Absolutely.
But I just want to remind people, please subscribe and tell your friends about this. We think we have a lot of good information to share, and the only way we can share it is through you. So please subscribe. And if you want to be a guest on our podcast, get in touch with us, and we'll make sure that information is there. I know it's there in the information part of the podcast, and maybe we'll flash it across the screen again. That's always kind of fun to be able to do it. But I think it's time for us to say
goodbye.
Well, that might later.
Well, yeah. I apologize for that's such a harsh term, goodbye. Good day.
We'll see you again soon.
See you again.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Solution.
Nothing changes if we change nothing.
Peace out.